Welcome to day one of the Digital Craft Festival. Thanks for coming along today on Saturday morning, possibly afternoon, maybe an evening, depending on where you're joining us from. For me, it's quite a beauty of a day in Glasgow, with bright sunshine and blue skies as we say goodbye to all the amazing visitors we've had from over the world to COP26. You know, some more amazing than others, I will say. We've had, you know, people arriving for debate, for awareness raising, for creative and cultural purposes, for, you know, kind of demonstrations, which has been amazing. And they've experienced all the weathers except snow. The festival itself is such a marvelous initiative that the team who run the craft festivals in Bobby Tracy, Cheltenham, Bath, and, you know, much more, headed up by the unstoppable Sarah James. If you've ever met her, you will know that that's a pretty good descriptor of that woman. Pivoted into being during the pandemic last year. And the platform has been really important for, you know, an excellent space for makers, craftspeople across the UK to connect, share and sell from their creative spaces as we're in a time of change, whether that's, you know, kind of pandemic or, you know, kind of resulting issues around that might be caring for others or, you know, kind of medical reasons. So I think it's been a great opportunity. My name's Helen Voce. I'm based in Glasgow and I work in Scotland and beyond, professionally and voluntarily supporting the creative and professional development of makers, craftspeople and designers. And it's through the studies that got me here and my profession that I met Doug and Hannah in that order. So Doug Fitch and Hannah McAndrew, and continue to know them to this day, which has been fantastic. And it's with them that we're kicking off the bumper strand of demonstrations within the festival programme that's brimming anyway, with a visit to their pottery studio near Corsock in glorious Galloway. Guys, have you got the sunshine today?
I have, it's beautiful, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Crisp blue skies, beautiful green hills. Oh, it's a beautiful place to go if you've not been there. And they're going to treat us to a throwing demonstration. You can see Doug getting ready in the back, and some slip trailing examples too. But just a caveat before we go into that is to say that if you're a fan, a follower, a friend, or a family member of Doug and Hannah, then you'll of course be drawn to the beautiful work that they make. But you'll also know that they don't do things by half. And you're very likely to know that at 7 o'clock, GMT, yeah, because we've gone back, they launched their 6th online annual exhibition. So this massive task of not only creating and successfully firing the work, but photographing it, creating the catalogue. If you've not looked, I'm going to get a link in the chat really soon. And also, then managing all the sales and packing and posting it internationally, taking a breath. And then I think, Hannah, it's fairly safe to say that you then have to put the reins on Doug so he's not spending all the profits on more that go on the shelf. So, you know, this task, this monumental task each year kind of happens. Doug's taking his anger at me out on the display.
On Hannah anyway.
But, you know, it is such a monumental task, you know, for a partnership to provide this wonderful, you know, I just think it's such an effort, you know, it's such a wonderful effort that has so many facets to it, to bring that beautiful work, you know, to the audience and to, you know, invite them to come with you on the journey that you guys have got. So I'm going to kind of go quiet, sit in the background, but also chip in some questions, maybe ask you to explain things, etc. Manage the chat. I can put people's mics on and off if they've got things to say. So yeah, anything further from me, let's meet you guys. And if you wish to say a bit more about who you are and where we find you today, and to put the upcoming demonstrations in context, then, you know, kind of please do. Otherwise, just get stuck in. And if people in the chat want to say hello or tell us more about who they are, please do. It'd be lovely to know more about who we've got in the room with us.
Grand.
I think we can read stuff on the back of here.
I'm hoping we can read chat messages on here, yeah. Yes. Great. Hello.
Hello. We started, haven't we?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Thank you for having us. We are, as Helen says, Doug Fitch and Hannah McAndrew, and we've both been potters separately in our lives for a long time, and then we got together, I can't remember I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. I've no idea now. But anyway, so now we are married, live in Scotland, have a workshop in the garden, 2 beautiful little children. It's quite idyllic, really.
Hard work.
But very hard work. Yeah, so we make slipware. We make pots decorated with different coloured liquid clays. In brief.
Yeah. And
I'm going to just turn the camera around and then I can show you what to do.
And do you want to say, because you're going to do two, ooh, steady now. Let's look at this. Everyone's leaning into the cameras as you scan those shells.
We're going to see that again. This
yeah,
is just
slowly. Oh, see, here we go. Yeah, this is just a segment. But
focus, yeah.
As you're doing that, Hannah, do you want to just quickly say, how you maybe work separately and together on things? Because you've got 2 kind of styles of your own, but you're bringing them together in certain elements, aren't you?
Yeah, we yeah. What do you do? Tell them what we do.
The thing is with what we do is we use a traditional palette of materials, and we don't kind of just make copies of traditional pots. We do our own thing using those materials, and I think that's kind of the challenge for people who work in this way, is to take those basic materials and try and find your own voice within it. And so that's what we've done. And so Hannah has her distinctive style, and I have mine. And I can't do what Hannah does, and she can't do what I do, and neither of us want to do what each other do anyway. So it works really well, but we're able to use the same materials to a different outcome. I think that's kind of roughly the ramble, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lovely. So Doug, tell us, or show us, demonstrate to us what you do.
Okay.
I'm just going to pop around the other side actually, because the light's too bright there. So hang on.
There we
It's
go.
too sunny in Galloway. Too sunny.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
That's better.
Well, I tend to make a lot of big jugs and things, inspired by medieval pottery and English country pottery, or British country pottery, United Kingdom country pottery, inspired by medieval pots, because I am
about £6, £4. £4.
Sorry?
It's frozen there.
I think we've got some mics on. I'll just turn them off.
All right, that's okay. Anyway, so yes, so that's what I want to do. So I'm gonna make one of these, sort of throw something like this morning. But demo pots are never very good, because normally it's just us in here, or when you have 2 children running around. So I say we try and get in the zone, but it's not always that easy with 2 little ones chasing around. But demo pots are never that brilliant, so I'm making my excuses in case it all goes horribly wrong. So anyway, what I've been doing here, I'll do this again, is I'm just kneading up the clay. So all this is essentially doing is blending the clay to ensure that I've got a kind of consistent consistency all the way through, and in theory, I'm trying to get any air out of the clay as well.
And what clay, do you want to say a bit more about the clay, Doug, that you're using? Because I'm sure we've got folk in the audience who are going to want to know,
This is red earthenware clay. So if we fire to about 1080 centigrade, and it actually comes from Stoke, Valentine's clay in Stoke. God, I'm not with it yet this morning.
You're exhausted.
We've been, because we've been in the online show, we've been doing regular sort of 2 o'clock in the morning sessions to get the pots together, get the catalogue together, and I'm an old man, It's hard work. So it's a slow start this morning. Anyway, that's it. So I've knocked together, this is 7 pounds of finest Valentine's red earthenware, slightly sanded clay. And I'm going to attempt to make something similar to that.
And Andy Craig wants to know where the Rocksteady Crew minions are.
Morning, Andy.
They're over at my dad's.
They are indeed.
They've been dispatched. Right, so
Last time I think we tried to do a demo with them here. Wasn't Fred filling Pippin's welly boots out there?
with
the
cold
watering can
water,
full of
yeah.
water. It was chaos, wasn't it? So yeah.
The Rocksteady Crew Minions refers to your children. I think that's important to say to those not in the know. The beautiful Pippin and Fred, who do make starring appearances in the catalogue and regularly, kind of on your Instagram and films. But great, here we go.
now how's that going to be for light, people? Is that too
We can move everything.
crazy? Do we need to move?
Terrible for me.
That's all right, you don't need to see.
That's true.
The wheels very well spotlit, actually. Yeah, you can
That's
see,
amazing.
Doug is squinting quite a bit.
It's almost like I did that on purpose, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can just use it as another excuse if it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
It's a bit wibbly wobbly. I've lost the wheel.
Hey, that's my swanky tool, that
It's not
is.
your swanky tool, it's mine.
You gave it me.
Oh, okay. You gave
No.
it to me. I got given that.
Yeah. Cynthia Bringle.
Cynthia Bringle gave it, yes. Right. So what I'm doing here first is you do as much of the hard work of centering before the clay even goes on the wheel. It just saves labour when it's on there. So there we go. So I've knocked that into that sort of shape. And before any water goes onto the clay, you can move the clay moves in a different way without us doing that with water. I'd just be splatting everywhere. It wouldn't really move. So done a lot of the centering already there. Right, here goes. You see, right.
So for any non-potters, this is centering. So essentially Doug's trying to make that lump of clay spin round in a circle with no bumpy bits. I think it would be.
That's how they describe
Fair
it.
description.
I think that's textbook, Hannah.
Absolutely.
You want to say, can you mention something maybe about the speed of the wheel at this point with that, kind of what are you?
Yeah, when I'm centering, it tends to be, I have this foot pedal out the side here, and when I'm centering, it tends to be pretty fast. I'll slow it down a bit later on, but yeah,
It's probably the fastest point of the whole bit.
It is, yes. Right. Okay, you want to come over here when you give?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I'm going to do now is open the pot up. So I've gone down to where the base is going to be, and now I'm going to open it out. So at this stage, that well, you've got to get the base thickness right. So quite often I'll use a tool that I can't see anywhere. I just have a one of those wooden barbecue skewer things, and I just prick it into the bottom of the pot to see if I've not got too thin or whether it needs to go a bit thinner. So anyway, I don't know where that is at the moment. Move the wheel, but there we go. So that's that. It's opened up. At this stage, it's critical to get the width of the pot right, because if that goes too wide, it's going to affect the whole of the form throughout the pot, and that looks about right for this kind of jug. If it were going to be a belly jug, it might be a bit wider, or a tapered jug. Particularly, I do use tapered jugs; they'll be wider still. For that kind of pot, we call those jugs U shape. That's what they're known of in this workshop, even though they're kind of based on a 13th century design. They were kind of a new shape to me fairly recently, weren't they? Although then I found some pictures of some I made years ago and they weren't at all a new shape to me. But
The width you're referring to, Doug, is that the internal width?
the width inside, yes. The internal width will obviously dictate dictate what the outside is. So that, so yeah, that's that. That's open. Now I'm going to lift the whole lot, and that's with my fingers hooked around it. I'm using this part of my hand to lift as much clay as possible, and then I'm going to go onto my knuckle.
And Doug, do you always throw by eye in terms of size for, like you were saying, either the new shape or the you know, the bellied jogs and things like that?
Yes, I don't. Sometimes if I was production throwing, wanted all them all to be the same, I'd have probably a piece of stick on a lump of clay, a pointer basically, what it's called in the trade. Mine would be a stick and a lump of clay, but you can get, you know, proper gadgets for it. But because I'm not, you know, no one's going to want a set of 6. Well, I wish they did, but no one's going to want a set of 6 of these. So each one is slightly different. But I know that because I've started with 7 pounds of clay, if it's not a certain height or a certain width or a certain combination of those two things, then I haven't got the maximum amount out of the clay, and the pot's going to be too heavy. So the idea of it really is to distribute and disperse the clay, not evenly, because it will need to be thicker at the bottom in order to take the in order to stay standing. But you know, it's got to be right. It has to have the clay dispersed properly. And we have a big collection. I don't know how you can see above here.
I think it might be too bright.
No, there you go. Of old country pots. Now those 19th century pots, made in various places, Yorkshire and Buckley in Wales. And on something like this pot here, I don't know how well you can see it on there, but it has really dynamic throwing lines on it, because the potter has had to make a lot of those very quickly, because they had to be cheap enough to be able to be used, well, afforded by people who are brewing their own beer at home because the water was poisonous. It sounds very familiar because ours is at the moment.
But we're not living on beer, I promise.
Yeah, you say that.
I've lost it now. Yes, so they had to be made quickly, you know, and so that meant really the potters' skills were absolutely honed, because they had to just churn them out as quickly as possible, but still keep, you know, great tension of form. And the marks of the potter's hand in there just tell that story about the skills of the maker, and they give it a sort of dynamic, whatever. So inspired by these sort of pots, I try and make mine as quickly as I can, not because I've got to make loads of them because they're cheap, because they're not that cheap in a different world now. But and nobody uses these every day really. But just because I love that, the telltale signs of good craftspersonship.
It's a beautiful way of talking about like that momentum, you know, that has been baked into the pot actually. So crack on, Doug. Let's keep going with this. It's do the quickness you've just told us about.
So what's that? Sorry.
You do the quickness that you were talking about.
Do the
What
magic.
would normally happen is, you see, I'm normally on here in the zone, and you're attuned to your material, so you're doing stuff intuitively and instinctively. But because I've got up and started talking nonsense about pots, I'm not. So no excuse. So, yeah. So I'm going to do another pull, and I'm being blinded as well. So I'm using the side of my knuckle, which is lifting the clay, thinning it.
Let's see if I can move. Oh, I can't go that way around actually, because the sun will be too bright.
All the time I'm trying to keep the top in, because with the speed of the wheel and the force of the wheel, it's trying to just force that out. So you have to keep this rim under control all the time. And invariably, if you get the foot right and the rim right, bit in the middle can sort itself out.
Just while you're kind of cracking on, it's just I've been asking people if we've got potters in the audience, and indeed we have lots of people who are saying they've got ambitions and they're beginners and they've got a fascination. So it's great to have you all with us and to, you know, spend this hour just with these, you know, kind of with the clay, with the technique, with the skills, with these two fabulous potters to kind of chat. So do you know, go nerdy, go abstract, it doesn't matter. Let's use this time to chat all things clay, all things pottery.
So what I'm doing now, I'm trying to put the shape in. This is what our lovely late buddy Phil Rogers used to call drawing in the air, isn't it? And you're mapping out the form of the pot. And what I've done here, because I'm not properly in the groove, is this is a bit higher than I would have liked. So it would have been, you know, I'd rather have the belly a bit lower and the neck a bit longer, but you know, I'll still make a pot of it. It'll just not be quite what it was going to be. Where it should have been down there. So it's about getting the curves right. This is a bit baggy, this pot. But you know, you can do a lot by putting a good handle on a pot.
A lady called Sue is asking if you're using a lot of force to pull that.
Not really, no. It's a matter. I think it's a matter of rhythm and gentle coaxing. I think really, it takes force to centre big lumps of clay, but if you do most of that, like I was at the start, if you do most of it before the wheel's spinning, just by passing the clay, or before you start putting any water on it, knocking the clay onto centre. A lot of people start with balls of clay. I always start with a cone of clay as well, because a lot of the hard work is done then if you've already got a cone of clay. But no, it's not taking a lot of force. I've found over the years that it takes less and less force. I guess it's focused. It's like people who do karate and chop concrete blocks, I suppose. You know, it's a matter of how they channel that force, I suppose. I don't know, I've never chopped a karate, but I'd imagine that's what it is. It's
knowing where to put the effort.
Yes, yeah. Knowing where to put the effort and knowing which muscles to use intuitively to do that. And knowing when to have the right amount of water, the right kind of water on the clay as well. You know, sometimes if you put too much water on, it's not going to move necessarily. The clay's not going to move as readily if you've got just the right amount of water. After making a lot of pots, you intuitively know when you've got to put water on and when you haven't, and it makes a huge difference actually when the water goes on. And it depends on the kind of pot you're trying to make, but very much on the kind of clay that you're using too. Some clays need virtually no water. We went to America, 10 years ago,
at least,
and some demos out there. We were using American Earthenware clay, and the properties of it were so completely different. We struggled massively. And then somebody said, "Well, use less water," because we were treating it as this stuff, which needs quite a lot of water to move in at critical stages. And so we did that. It was kind of like throwing a putty, wasn't it?
It was odd stuff, yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Great excuse to use rather than the sun in your eyes. That's my excuse that day. Anyway, I think I've probably rambled too much. Ever these things, and now I'm getting dazzled too much. So,
Tom Millett from Devon says hello.
morning. Hey Tom, how you doing? Oh, nice. Hey Tom.
Hannah, you haven't fed back the final part of Tom's message, which I think is important.
I can't remember what the last bit was. Sorry, I must have missed that.
Oh, really? It says, Doug, the years have been good, been kind to you, is what Tom said.
You said that, Tom?
Yeah.
You're still good, buddy. Oh, it's nice to hear from you, Tom.
So how long have you been throwing, Doug? Because I think it's important, particularly if you've got people in the audience who are kind of learning, you know, kind of how long have you been throwing, and like you say, building these instincts and building this kind of knowledge and experience to bring to the wheel each time?
Well, I made my first pots when I was 18.
I'm going to try moving, sorry.
When I was on an art foundation course.
Oh, that's no better.
Is it bad light, is it?
Yeah, it's getting a bit bright.
Okay. All right.
You'll lose your pot, you mean?
Over here.
Ah!
That's not a good excuse, is it? I did an art foundation course in Kettering in Northamptonshire when I was 18, and I went there, wanted to be a painter, but then got disillusioned with it. It was a very kind of graphic design based course. This was in the early 80s, and then I discovered ceramics and skived off into the ceramics room. I had a really good teacher called Shirley Phillips. She was fantastic, and a guy called Chris Harrison who took me off and showed me a jug. I was trying to make jugs, and they were kind of these. This is when I was 18. I don't know, a long time ago, 39 years. I've been doing it for 39 years. I better not ramble anymore. Anyway, Chris Harrison and Shirley Phillips taught me, showed me pots, and Chris showed me the jug, and he said, "Oh, this is how it should be. The neck should be defined here." And that was an eye opener. And so yeah, I started when I was 18, and then left college, worked in a flower pot factory in Bedford for a little bit. Went to Liverpool, lived there for a while, slip casting really nasty pink lamp bases, and then worked at the art college where of course I met you, Helen. I think I started there in about 1990. Worked there for nearly 19 years. But during that time, spent a lot of time helping fire kilns with Clive Bowen and Sven Bayer and Nick Collins, who had been at Derby with as a student. I missed that bit out. That I did ceramics, which was amazing back in the 80s when higher education was properly funded and we could have anything we wanted. And there were 8 of us on my year group on the course. So yeah, 39 years, and then of course the art college in Exeter moved to Plymouth, and I took that opportunity to take my redundancy and get the hell out of there, because I think I'd spent pretty much 19 years awake every night with stress, and some of the daytime as well.
I think that's really important to acknowledge that you've had, kind of learning, yourself within kind of education, industry, within studio, in other studios, but also you've been delivering in an academic space as well. So actually this accumulation of knowledge is across a number of different places. So
yes, yeah, it's amazing how important these, everything you do can, when I worked in the flower pot factory, I'd spend hours and hours. We had a big dough mixer thing for mixing the clay. I mean, it's highly illegal now, but it's the 80s when you could lose the odd arm or whatever. And this big dough mixer that had this big arm that would come over and mix the clay. And I would stand at this dough mixer. There's a guy, a jigger and jolly machine, this machine for making these wall pots that we used to make. And I'd stand there whipping 3 pounds of clay out, knock it into a ball, put it into a mold, passing it to him. And it was kind of pretty dull, but you got to understand whether the clay needed a bit more clay in it, a bit more water. You got to get that intuitive contact with the material. So even though it was a dull and boring job, it was really important. And I knew what 3 pounds of clay weighed as well. So, yeah.
There we go. I'm going to bring you back to the jug after I've distracted you.
Yeah.
You were putting the sponge in and pulling it out. What were you doing in that process?
What was that? Sorry?
Getting the water out.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was getting the water out. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and give this neck. I've taken it a bit too far in the neck, so, which would be fine. Just be different from what I'm expecting. But I quite like this on my new shaped jugs to have this long, slender neck. Well, this is a bit more. There's a country pottery in Dorset called Verwood Pottery, where this pot was made in that one there. You got that? Yeah.
Yep.
In 1680, something like that.
early 1700s.
A long time ago. Anyway, many years ago, that was a possible, but carrying your drink. And the Verwood jugs have this low belly. I'm not as full as a Verwood jug, but Verwood jugs are Hannah's particular favourite. So Merry Christmas. Right, there we go. Yes, I was removing the water from the bottom of it, because if you leave the water in, it will just, after you take it off the wheel, the pot will just go, the bottom of the pot will just go soggy and fall out. So that's kind of roughly there or thereabouts. I think there's on our online catalogue thing, we used a platform called Issue, which is an online magazine turning page thing. It's strange, really, because it's like turning the pages of a real catalogue. But we were able to embed videos in it, and there's a little video. We just did some little 1 hour video, 1 minute videos, little 1 minute videos in between, and there's one of those where I talk about jugs and the importance of proportion, like getting that right, getting the base right, getting that right, and the curves right, and then getting the handle right. So if anybody's interested in that, it's there. And potters who are just starting, we always say, if we can help, which reminds me, somebody emailed me back later, so I need to reply. We always say, if we can help, we will, because it's fantastic. People are, so many people. I think the pottery throwdown thing, we don't watch it, but I think it's done wonders for. It divides opinion in the pottery world. Some people saying, why are they making a game show about precious craft, which is, fair enough, but it's such a photogenic process that it's lovely to see clay on the telly, and I think a lot of people have come to making pots because of it.
And it just raises awareness, doesn't it?
Awareness, yes. And
even if it's a very basic understanding, it gives people some understanding of some of the things that go into making pots and why it's quite so fraught with
troubles and frustrations. I'll show you one of my frustrations. Like, I always make too many jugs because I've become obsessed. I've always been obsessed. We have a house full of old jugs, and by Stan and Clive and temporary makers, Helen McAndrew, a few of them, and what am I talking about?
Jugs.
And so I always say, right, for this year's show, I'm going to make something that's not jugs. And so I started out making some dishes, which are over here. And I've got it. There they are, right there. I made these dishes with you cut the slit out the middle and then rejoin it. But of course, there they are.
That's to make them oval rather than
to make them oval. I wanted to do something that wasn't. And they used to make these at an old country pottery in Framington in North Devon back in the 19th century. And Michael Cardew and Ray Finch used to do a lot of them at Winchcombe Pottery, but they every single one of them, split down the middle, which is mighty frustrating. So clay is full of challenges, and you just got to practice and practice and practice and practice and keep going. I think I know what I did wrong there. I've just got to try again, go through the whole process. It'll probably fail again, but until you just do it, you have to get it wrong to get it right, really.
Yeah.
Dare I ask how we're doing for time, Helen?
Sorry.
Yeah, you've got 20 minutes. So I'm gonna say, Doug, are you putting us out on the jug? Possibly a handle? Can you do it quickly?
Okay.
It'd be straight to kid, I'll use this.
I have no idea.
Tiles or something.
Dunno.
I'll use this. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Well, yeah. I've just sorted this out because this is Hannah's Christmas present. It's all she's getting, so I better make it good.
Charmer. What a charmer.
No, that's not true. There's 10 historical pots in the post.
Might have my eye on something already for you.
He just gave me a beautiful new brick last week for my birthday.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, a new old brick. Yeah.
Yeah.
There aren't many ladies that can say that, so.
There aren't, and I know that the one who liked it as much as that is the one for me. I remember being in Cornwall. We were down near Wentford Bridge Pottery, Michael Cardew's old pottery, and on the Camel Trail just down there, there's an old china clay works full of dense fire brick, and it was just before Anna and I got together. But we went down there together, and we were running down these kind of what they call hype courses, where they dry the china clay and it's derelict, but it was all made out of dense fire brick. And I was going, oh my god, all this dense fire brick. And I said to my mate Frank, who was with me at the time, I said, any girl who gets us excited about that dense fire brick is the girl for me. And I was right, and she still does to this day. Thank goodness. I got brick around here. Okay, right. Okay, I'll put the spout on it. So I'm just gonna.
Oops.
Shall I move? I'll come around here.
I can't see the screen, so I don't know what this is.
All right, okay.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Is that okay? Right, cool.
Oh, I'm on my knees. I'll never get up
Yeah,
again.
no, I can't see that.
Right, okay. Hannah told me to make this demo last for ages, so she didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, right. Talk us through what you're doing, Doug.
Oh, right, okay. I'm just thinning the clay out a little bit.
That's great, Hannah.
There you go. That's better.
I remember when I was 18 and I didn't know I wanted to be a potter. I went to Winchcombe Pottery and I saw Eddie Hopkins make jugs, and that was the kind of moment that the penny dropped that I wanted to be a potter. And he sat there and he made this jug, and he thinned out the rim on the thing like this, and then he put the lip in, and I had never considered how that might have been done. And I went, oh yeah, brilliant. So I was watching Eddie Hopkins putting the lip in on a jug that was a life changer for me. There we go.
That's a kind of a pinch, not a pinch close, but a kind of pinch space and then forming towards you.
Yeah, I just go either side, and then and some people will thin them out more than this or whatever, but for earthenware clay, you don't want to thin it too much because that's going to be very vulnerable. Stoneware clay is much harder. I mean, any clay, if you're going to bash it on the rim, is going to chip. But yeah, I tend to do it like that. And some people, Russell Kingston does some really nice lips that he adds onto the pot. Check out Russell's work. He makes some really nice.
What was his surname?
Russell Kingston.
Kingston. Okay, I'll find a link.
And Jessica Turrell, they're down in Devonshire. Where they're down Lynmouth.
One of them.
Yes, one of them. Anyway, there we go. So what I do is I put a big chunky handle on that, wrap it up, and give it Hannah for Christmas. There we go.
And there was one question from Lydia that was just being asked before you put the spout in. She was just asking about what were you using to shape the clay. I think we were in silhouette, so we couldn't really see.
Sorry. Well, there was a triangular thing that he was using, a scratchy tool that was putting these little ridges.
I don't know what it is. Normally I'll use a serrated kidney, metal kidney to do that, but I couldn't find it because we're all in a bit of chaos in here. So it's just
I'm not quite sure what
I
it is.
assume it's
a thing.
Putting tile cement on.
It's like something yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that.
But that was just putting the ridges around the.
That ends up in a toolbox in the pottery.
Can you show us again?
The orange thing.
But normally I'd use metal kidneys. I don't know where they are.
It kind of looks like a stickle brick from my.
Does look like a stickle brick, yeah.
We've got some of them. Kids will never forgive me. Right, splendid. Right, okay. I'll shut up now.
Okay, I'm going to move this way.
I just better wash my hands quick.
Okay.
You can explain again.
Right. So I'm going to decorate. I'm not actually going to decorate a pot. I'm going to decorate some boards so that I can just wipe it off and start again. These are my slip trailers. So these are all full of liquid clays. And I just have 4 colours, which are not the colour that's on the end of the nozzles. So this is a white slip, and it's a bit like an icing bag, it's piping the clay out of here. And you can buy commercially made slip trailers, but excuse me. But these are made of a bicycle inner tube, the end of a propelling pencil, cork from a demijohn, and a bulldog clip thing. So that's those.
Good.
Where's best likewise for me to sit this side?
Maybe.
Is that all right?
That looks all right to me. Yes. Yeah. I'm going to shut up about my pots and my influences, but before I do, is if you're sharing links, Helen, there's a YouTube video of a guy called Isaac Button, and Isaac Button made that's one of Isaac Button's on the end, made these old country pots, and I think for anybody who wants to see amazing and dynamic throwing, look up Isaac Button on YouTube. Right, there we go.
Okay, so this is white slip. So it's just a white clay in suspension, just in water. It's as simple as that. So we're going to pretend that this is one of these.
Too much dark behind me. Okay, okay, I'll come over here. There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I tend to do is cover my surface in slip first.
And as we just put a little film together of you decorating these plates, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
Which is in the virtual catalogue that we download on our YouTube channel as well.
I always try and centre the pots again because I quite like things to be just so.
This stage of the process when you've got glistening slip is probably the bit that we like the most, isn't it? Really?
Oh yeah.
I kind of lose a bit of interest a bit once the slip's dried out.
So this is a black slip in this one, and pretty much whatever I decorate, I said, and then looked at the first pot I saw doesn't have it. But usually I define the edges or define a frame that I'm then going to work within. So with these square dishes, I would.
You're fine.
Yeah.
All right.
So I do enjoy having a frame to work within. When I'm drawing the lines, I'm trying not to touch the wet slip on the background because it will distort the slip, it will move that background slip around, and I don't particularly want that. And there are times that Doug decorates pots, and that's exactly what he does want. But for this particular thing, I don't. Okay. And when I'm decorating, I put the slip onto the leather hard pots, so it's going onto unfired pots, and I work straight into it while the slip's still wet, because I want the trailed lines that I'm drawing to just soften into the background a little bit, to sit into it rather than standing proud.
Just put a video together of Hannah decorating one of her huge chargers, and it's amazing. Watch, you'll see why I don't do very much decorating on flat stuff, because if you share a workshop, somebody can do this sort of stuff. But Hannah works in a very neat way generally in life. I think, which is where our worlds are at contrast, aren't they?
Opposites attract.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah. I mean, Hannah just needs someone to tidy up after. Is that right?
Do you want to, Hannah, say something about the imagery that you kind of use and refer to, that, you know, kind of language within, both within and without, you know, the kind of historic pottery that kind of fires you up?
Okay, a lot of what I draw is based on loosely, abstractly, about what's out and about around us. But I do look at a lot of historic pottery and other folk arts, really. Any of those traditions that use very naive, simplified way of depicting something. And so taking the elements that make it what's the word, identifiable as the particular thing, without trying to do an exact reproduction of it.
And Lydia's just asking, do you start with any colour, or do you have to start with the darkest first?
I only tend, well, if I'm doing a white background, I tend to start with the black first, because that's just what I use for my outlines. If it was a black background, I'd use the white one first. So I use whatever I'm going to draw the outlines with, and then I'll fill in colours around that, or in between that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we do make our own slip. generally the white slip that we use is a ball clay, so that's just used as it is. But for a black slip, we would use 8 parts of red clay, 1 part of manganese dioxide, and 1 part of iron oxide. So we mix that up. That's a fairly standard black slip recipe, really, isn't it? And a green slip, again, it will just be this ball clay with the addition of about 3% of copper oxide.
And this is a kind of orangey colour. It's this, if you can see in the middle of here, this orangey bit is it's a red clay. It's 50-50 a red clay and the white clay.
At this stage, you're actually moving the slip that's already on the surface, don't you?
Not so much intentionally. But
You're not feathering them together?
not particularly. I'm just moving it over the top really here, rather than feathering.
I was going to say, it looks to us like you're kind of almost, you're filling but then layering onto what you've just.
Yeah, I was filling in the scallop shape at the top and then drawing a line over the black bits.
And again, Hannah, like I was asking Doug about experience, for you, is that about, you know, kind of trialing and seeing what's going to happen as a result of maybe the amount or the layering, or how those how the slips are going to react in the kiln, as to what effects you'll get as a result?
Yeah, it's very much about just, you know, try and learn by doing. Yes, very much. You're learning at what point you can put a layer of white slip onto an unfired pot without it falling to pieces. Too wet, it'll collapse. Too dry, it'll crack. Because by putting that layer of slip onto the pot, you're rehydrating the pot completely, so it'll be going back to pretty much the kind of wetness that it is on the wheel, really.
And I noticed that some of the pieces in the currently in the online exhibition, the chargers that you've done are very heavily decorated, you know, beautifully so. But, you know, does that, like you say, that kind of really, if you've got to be very conscious of that in terms of affecting the structure and stability of the body?
Interestingly, not so much in those chargers, because I make them, those are press molded dishes. So I decorate them in the mold, which means you can get away with a hell of a lot more because the mold is still supporting the charger.
Okay.
If it was a thrown pot with a big rim, then yes, I do have to be, you know, if it's a plate with a wide rim, be quite careful. And on the bellied pots as well, just be aware of how much it's drying and whether the foam is starting to, sometimes you can see the foam just start to get a little bit squatter, and you know it's time to get a gas torch out, but give it a blast of heat.
We have this gadget, which I suggest every potter get, really, but don't get them from a pottery suppliers. Get them from Machine Mart or something like that, which is just this gas torch. It runs off a big red bottle, and we use it a lot, don't we? As I was saying, you know, if you're rehydrating stuff, it's going to fall to bits if you're not careful. So those, or otherwise one of those electric paint stripper, which also is a handy thing, but this is much quicker, isn't it?
Yeah. This is I'm just putting little tiny white dots on top of the orangey slip. This is called purling. It was something that potter called Thomas Toft in the 17th century used a lot to really great effect. But yeah, anyway, there you go. That's a quick example.
Yeah, you want to see the faces. It's going to happen. I want to say the lady who I can see with Mike.nom, I'm just going to recount a story a couple of spring flings ago, which is an open studio event. Doug threw a jug, a really large jug, and he had the torch and he was drying it off, but the audience was a group of young children that were visiting. And he was throwing as a demonstration, and they were mesmerized by it, you know, that ability of hand and eye coordination. And he got to the end after drying it a little bit and just stabbed it with a knife. And all of the children just went, oh! And there was this outcry. It was dramatic, but also wonderful. Commanding. Andy's asking if you've got the base of your new wood kiln completed.
That's so funny, Andy.
No, we haven't. We've got the. Well, I should explain. We use electric kilns, which are in here. This is our kiln room in here. So there we've got some electric kilns in there, but we also use a wood-fired kiln. So from the electric kiln, you get this, which is beautiful, but you'll get it every time. From a wood-fired kiln, the black slip might do this. So you get, this is a good example really of a wood-fired pot, because it's very much a two-sided. I can't really hold them both, but a two-sided piece. I've got to be careful. These pots don't belong to us anymore. No. Suddenly came in here this morning and thought, no, this is ours anymore because we sold it.
I was going to say that's in the catalogue.
Yes, yes, it belongs to somebody, so I've got to be careful. So we like to fire the wood kiln, but we moved to this particular house and workshop 6 years ago, and started off in an old caravan here, but we still have the old workshop at Loch Dugan, which of course you'll know, Helen, which is 25 miles from here, and that's where the wood kiln is. And during lockdown, it was impossible to get there, of course, and the kids have grown. It's much more difficult now, because when Fred was a little baby in a sling, we could just go and fire it much more readily, but it's in the corner of a field 25 miles from here, and if it's pouring with rain, it's very difficult to fire. And our friend Alex McAndrew, who lives in Chorley, comes up and helps us, and he tends to do the early shift, but of course during lockdown he wasn't allowed out of Lancashire, and for quite a long time after the rest of us were allowed to do stuff. So we've only actually fired the wood kiln once in 2 years, haven't we? So we're starting to build one at home, and we've had the initial earthworks have been done. We've had a guy with a big digger has come and put a load of hardcore down, and so the site is being prepared. But and we've got Adam Booth, the renowned blacksmith, who you'll know, Helen, it has made us a big steel shed that's in
not in beautifully forged.
Not in galvanized, but beautifully made, beautifully built nevertheless.
Yeah.
But it's all flat packed at the moment, so it's waiting to be put up. But as these things are, everything takes so long, particularly as we're trying to work, and we've got 2 children, and nursery. Fred's nursery is it's a 30-mile round trip that we're having to do twice a day to get him to nursery and back. Fit's at school now, but there's a lot of time spent in a van taking the kids to school or to nursery. Quick gets the bus, but
so to cut a long story short, not yet, Andy.
Yes, but we will.
But progress is being made.
But you will get roped in when they need your help.
Yeah, he's going to come and fire it for us. He knows what he's doing.
Hannah, this is beautiful.
I was just going to say, we are doing Spring Fling next year for the very first time from here.
Oh, fantastic. That's great news. Yeah. And I think that's a good point. Although we're in a digital festival, and I'm strongly going to encourage everybody who's here is go to more of the demonstrations, go to the conversations, listen to the podcast, but this is a space for meeting makers, finding out about their work, and ultimately purchasing. Doug has to feed this habit of buying pots, so as well as them to sell. So we encourage you to do that. But can people, as COVID allows, are people able to visit you by appointment, or
we're open by appointment, and as long as you can deal with our chaos, you're welcome to come and visit. Just give us a shout. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing here, which is feathering. So I've got 2 different colours of slip here. I've got the white that I'm putting on now, and the orangey one that's behind.
So you're putting white on top of the white.
Yeah, trailed white on top of the white background, and then somewhere in my box it's called feathering because it would originally have been done with the spine of a feather, but this isn't. This is a bit of a bring, and I'm just going to pull those 2 colours through each other. Bakewell tart.
It's funny, the kind of buds that are coming off, I've got macarons in my head from those. So the Bakewell tart thing is making me hungry. We are just at 12 o'clock, so we may have to draw to a close, but are you just going to finish up, Hannah? And
Well, I mean, I don't have to because it's just a board, so I'm going to wipe it off in a minute.
no, but you might have another technique up your sleeve. And there's lots of leaning in on the cameras. People are hooked. They're in.
Andy's firing his kill next week.
Oh, good luck, Andy. When I'm drawing lines, I like the ends of the lines to be, I like to start it with a bigger blob, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Punctuation, I suppose. Isn't it?
It's mesmeric watching it.
Yeah. Check out the film of Hannah decorating the charger. There's another one actually that we need to put onto YouTube of a more geometric design, isn't there? Which it's an extraordinary thing to watch because a big sheet of clay, which would terrify me, is a playground for you, isn't it? Really? And I must get the other film on because even this film where you bisect the sheet of clay just by eye, it's extraordinary.
I've shared a link to the YouTube channel in the chat, so everyone can kind of go there. But if you're not already doing, you can follow Hannah and Doug on Instagram, which is where they post quite a lot of their films as well. Do you put a lot of the films on Facebook or anything? I've got a link for that.
Usually it should automatically do its magic.
Yeah. And here's some she made earlier. There we go. I must just show you this. It was Hannah's birthday the other day, and Hannah had made a spare mug, so Pippin took it away.
Oh.
This is an owl, so she's taken after her mum.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that's her mummy dancing in the flowers, which of course she does a lot of, as you'll know, Helen. And it's the daytime on one side, and the night time on the other side.
How do you attach it to the fridge? Like most people have kids' drawings on the fridge.
Yeah.
Again, there are some beautiful images in the catalogue as well of both Pip and Fred with pots.
Oh yes, there's one of her decorating that actually, isn't it?
And you know the daffodils, Doug?
The daffodils,
yes.
yeah.
Oh God.
Sorry, this is a bit of a...
You don't want to see up my nose. Right, yes. Oh, there we go.
Don't break them.
These are from the Digital Craft Festival at the beginning of the year. Where are we? There we are. The kiddies made these with Jim Parkin in one of their make-along sessions, and we didn't have any plasticine, so they made clay daffodils.
Look at that. The kids program in the festival is great as well. There's some brilliant folk that they get along to work. So if you've got children or I don't know, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, get them along. There's a quick question from Kate. What's the glaze?
The glazes are very traditional glazes. We use lead-based glazes, fritted ones, and fritted and tested. We use 3 different colours. We use a very pale yellow and a medium and a dark honey-coloured one. I can send you the recipes if you want them. Just drop the line.
And the same with any of our slip recipes. That's what I would normally use instead of that orange thing. I don't know if you can see that. That's just a serrated edge kidney. That's what I'd use around the top of the pots normally.
And Kate very kindly said that is that tool that you've got is for putting grain into faux wood. Is that right? The thing, but yeah, for creating wood grain in painting faux wood. So there you go.
Well, there we know.
What's that called?
Stumbling.
Stumbling.
I think that's a different thing.
Scrambling.
So
yeah.
In terms of getting in touch with you, if people are driving through Galloway, if they're heading in your direction, if they want to ask you about the glazes, is email the best?
Email, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you like. Give us a ring.
Yeah.
Whatever's easiest.
Brilliant. And so thanks so much. We've run over by 5 minutes, so thanks everyone for kind of sticking around, and thanks for thanks just as ever for the generosity. We did this last year and it was marvelous, and it was great, and I've been very fortunate enough to see you guys in your garden twice, I think, during lockdown. More than some members of my family. Great. But I just want to say, thanks to everybody who's come along today to join us at the first demo of this festival. I hope you're able to attend more, and these other elements of the program that we've been talking about. So the children's activities, the conversations, the podcast is great. There's a series there that you can listen back to. I'm hoping that Sarah will do more. That would be marvelous. And as I said, importantly, get to meet the makers, find out about their work, and if you can make some purchases. It's really important. And thanks to Sarah, James, Merrin's here as Craft Festival, and all the team for the opportunity that brings this together, because I think it was really needed last year, and I think it's definitely a great format for kind of going forward, as I said, for people who maybe can't travel to show their wares, but this format could be great. And of course, thanks to you guys, to Doug and Hannah. It's always lovely to see you. It's always lovely to see the inside of the studio and the garden. It's in bloom. And thanks for welcoming all of us into the pottery. It's been
thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. And Tom Miller.
And Tom.
I think Debbie Manson might be here as well.
Debbie there. Debbie. I used to share my workshop with Debbie.
We have got Debbie. Yeah.
Hey! Hi, Debbie. Oh, how lovely. That's brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, everybody.
Come see us, Helen. Come see us, everybody.
Will do. There's lots of lovely thanks in the chat. If you want to save the chat for the links, hopefully you know what to do with Zoom. Just click the 3 buttons, click save chat.
All right, okay.
You'll be able to save all the links and the questions and things like that.
Fantastic.
Great.
Well, lovely. Thanks to everybody
Thanks,
for coming.
Helen.
Take care. Lots of love.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Enjoy the festival, everybody. Bye.
Bye.